But first, the hot topic of the hour. The federal cases against former FBI Director Jim Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James have been dismissed by a federal judge yesterday. District Judge Cameron Curry deeming U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan was improperly appointed, rendering the indictments as defective. The fired FBI director spoke out after the decision.
I'm grateful that the court ended the case against me, which was a prosecution based on malevolence and incompetence, and a reflection of what the Department of Justice has become under Donald Trump, which is heartbreaking. This case mattered to me personally, obviously, but it matters most because a message has to be sent that the President of the United States cannot use the Department of Justice to target his political enemies. I know that Donald Trump will probably come after me again, and my attitude's going to be the same. I'm innocent, I am not afraid, and I believe in an independent federal judiciary. It's time to stand up and show the fools who would frighten us, who would divide us, that we're made of stronger stuff, that we believe in the rule of law.
Letitia James saying this in a statement: I am heartened by today's victory and grateful for the prayers and support I have received from around the country. I remain fearless in the face of these baseless charges as I continue fighting for New Yorkers every single day. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi also speaking out, saying that the DOJ will take all available legal action after the decisions, including an immediate appeal. The White House says, quote, the facts of the indictment against Comey and James have not changed, and this will not be the final word on this matter. Here's the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, yesterday.
We believe the attorney in this case, Lindsay Halligan, is not only extremely qualified for this position, but she was, in fact, legally appointed. And I know the Department of Justice will be appealing this in very short order. So maybe James Comey should pump the brakes on his victory lap.
I spoke with Article 3 Project President Mike Davis on Sunday Morning Futures ahead of this decision on the evidence in the case against Comey. Watch this.
Lindsay Halligan has shown time and time again that she has overwhelming evidence that James Comey lied to Congress about his involvement in Crossfire Hurricane, the biggest scandal in American history. We've seen the evidence. She's produced it in response to James Comey's various motions to try to derail this prosecution. The evidence is overwhelming, but we do have Democrat judges in this courthouse in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., who seem to be going out of their way to protect James Comey and to try to kick this case.
Joining me now is former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Now, these cases were dismissed without prejudice, meaning that they can be filed again. We expect them to be filed again. What's your reaction?
I think the comment about James Comey should pump the brakes is exactly right. It's really too early for them to spike the football on the dismissal, both James and Comey. And it's important to know that Judge didn't dismiss the cases because they found that they were politically motivated or lacked merit. It was just simply a technicality as to the appointment of Lindsay Halligan, whether this 6-month period of time for an interim appointment had lapsed. So it had nothing to do with the merits. But what's interesting is the Trump administration has two avenues to pursue here. They can just simply re-indict the cases, or they can appeal this issue. And the interesting thing about that is, even if the Trump administration loses on appeal, they can still re-indict the cases. So when James Comey says the cases are over, that's not correct at all. And I think maybe he's referring to the statute of limitations ending. But again, there's another federal statute, 18 U.S.C., I think it's 3288, that says if an indictment's dismissed, there's a 6-month extension on the statute of limitations to indict a case. So this case can be indicted either way, but I think they will appeal it, and I think they will be successful on the appeal.
Well, I also think that there could be different charges, right, Jonathan? I mean, if you're talking about a new charge of conspiracy, which is something that we've spoken about because it's been really 10 years of attacks against President Trump, does that carry a different statute of limitations than the other charges?
Well, that's an interesting point. And yeah, a conspiracy statute of limitations would end essentially 5 years after the last act of one of the conspirators in furtherance of the conspiracy. So it certainly could be a lot more recent. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And the other thing to keep in mind, typically in a case, the prosecutor, time is not the prosecutor's friend, meaning the defense usually wants to delay things because it benefits them. But in this case, it might actually be different because the prosecutors are new on this case. So it will give them more of an opportunity to investigate not only the current charges, but like you said, other potential charges. So it's really a very interesting thing. And the most important thing is really there's this constitutional aspect of this as to how appointments are made, whether or not district judges have more authority to appoint prosecutors and U.S. attorneys than the President of the United States. And I think that part of the statute is going to get a hard look from the Supreme Court because it really essentially says a Democratic senator can refuse to blue slip appointees, and then it reverts to district judges appointing members of the executive branch, which really doesn't make any sense at all. So there's so many interesting things, but the bottom line is the case goes on against both James and Comey and has nothing to do with whether or not Comey lied to Congress or whether James committed mortgage fraud. Nobody's weighed in on either of those issues yet.
So how long do you expect before the appeal happens? And, you know, it's interesting to hear Jim Comey say, look, I'm innocent. I mean, what is he saying he's innocent for? He's innocent. In other words, he didn't lie to Congress under oath. I mean, she's got detailed information about that one. Or he didn't pursue a story against President Trump, Russia collusion that he knew was false. I mean, what is he saying he's innocent to?
That's an interesting point, because if he's innocent of the core allegations, whether or not he told the truth or not to Congress, it's interesting that they are pursuing all these technical defenses. Not that they shouldn't and don't have a right to, but that's not what happened here. And this impression that's being out there that somehow a judge ruled on the merits is not true. But yeah, how long will this take? It's really up to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals how quickly to take this up. It could be very quickly. It could be months, probably 6 months or so that this could be dormant.
All right, Jonathan, we will keep watching all of that. Thanks so much for weighing in on that. Jonathan Fahey, good to see you.